What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Kick-Ass Podcast. I hope you're having a fantastic week as always. Today we are here to preview AEW Revolution for 2023. We're not going to waste any time. We're going to get right into it, but I do want to say thank you as always for downloading and listening to the show, and feel free to follow us on Twitter at @KickAssPodcast_ and follow me on Twitter at ASHMANNS. But like I said, we are going to get right into the pay-per-view. Thankfully, it is kind of a loaded card, but it's not terribly loaded. It's at least, I think we have 8 matches here. It is a Sunday pay-per-view, and you guys know how I feel about my Saturday pay-per-views. I'm getting spoiled and just getting used to the Saturday pay-per-views, as I'm sure we all were. Like I said, it's just something nice about having that Sunday free, even though it's cool to kind of end your week with a pay-per-view, and especially AEW pay-per-views always deliver, or for the most part have always delivered. Even though the build for this, I will say, has not been my all-time favorite in AEW world of builds to story, or to pay-per-views rather. And again, I'm most likely biased because I just think the build, the 3-4 months, probably even 6 months actually, going into Revolution last year, and then the Revolution pay-per-view itself. And again, I say I'm probably biased because I was at the Revolution pay-per-view, but there was just something different about it. I just think the company was just hitting on all cylinders. Like I said, probably the 6, maybe even 8 months going back as I put more and more thought into it. But yeah, it was just something different about that build going into last year's Revolution. And just something, I don't want to say something's off this year, but something just isn't there, or just something's different. And I don't know how to really feel about it. So maybe we'll talk it out. Maybe I'll know how to feel towards the main event of the card as we go through the lineup here. But I'm hoping, with all that being said, that we are not going to get too terribly long of a pay-per-view. Of course, with it being Sunday night and we all have work on Monday. Well, most of us have work on Monday mornings. It's going to suck getting up early, you know what I mean? But it is what it is. And I think, and I will say too, it is cool that it's out on the West Coast again. It's in San Francisco in the Chase Center, so that'll be cool. But we're gonna get right into the card. I have a bad feeling we're gonna get like a late last minute 2 matches added on via Twitter or some shit. So this may end up being a 10-card total match. But I say all that because, of course, our main event is gonna be an hour-long Iron Man match. So, you know, if we just get through all the other matches, or that last match finishes, and then it's 11:45, close to 12, you know, and I have a bad feeling, guys, we're going to be watching wrestling until 1 o'clock, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I mean, when you start at I think their preview show is going to start at 7:30-ish, and the main card starts at 8, of course. I don't know, with how many matches you have on this card, and maybe he won't add any more since, you know, all those factors built in. Maybe he being Tony Khan, maybe he won't throw any last minute matches on there, but I don't know, you have people like Jade Cargill, she's still not on the lineup itself, and that one was a really big omission to me. Just, I don't know, and again, maybe I missed something, but I'm going through here and I still don't see anything as of this publishing of the lineup for the card, so I don't know. Just very strange to me. Very strange. But like I said, with all that out of the way, that's what I was finishing. My prediction for the end time of the card. Yeah, guys, I'm thinking probably around 1 o'clock, 12:45, 1 o'clock. So for all you guys out there who go live after the pay-per-views end, have fun. I'm going to be passing out, probably. But it is cool, though. And like I said, regardless of, and there's a lot that we can debate, you know, whether this makes it right or wrong, but the build, like I said, to this particular pay-per-view hasn't been the strongest in my opinion, but AEW pay-per-views just hit different, and there's just a different level of excitement, and even just the shows in general when you're in a live attendance. So, I said I'm not going to waste too much time, and I kind of did there, but we'll get in right to the card here. First up on the lineup, we have a no-holds-barred match between Jungle Boy Jack Perry versus Christian Cage. And I'm just so happy that we finally got to this match. Part of me is thinking, it's just, I don't want to say too good to be true that Jungle Boy wins and we end the feud and just kind of ride off into the sunset and Jack Perry does his own thing and Christian Cage continues to do whatever he's gonna do. I don't know. I have a feeling that Christian is gonna win here and they're gonna even the score and I think that they're gonna go for that ever coveted rubber match. It seems, especially in AEW, in a lot of feuds, it's like a best of three without actually being called that. But yeah, I have a funny feeling this is gonna be one of those, and I think very conspicuous by his absence rather is Luchasaurus. Unless I missed something, he hasn't been seen on TV. So that's very interesting as well, and I want to say maybe he was maybe nursing an injury as well, but I don't think it was, if it was, I don't think it was anything too serious, but very interesting by him not being involved, at least up until this point. But I will say I guess the angle, like the go home angle with Jungle Boy, I don't even know what you would call that, kind of like a buried alive type aspect to it with the whole graveyard and the stone and everything like that with Christian Cage's name on it. I don't know. Like, to me, it just didn't seem like it was him, right? That's not really Jack Perry, unless this is a start to like a darker side of him. Then okay, cool. But it didn't seem fitting, right? Like we went from him not even being sure that he wants to hit Christian with a chair not too long ago to insinuating that he wants to bury him alive, essentially, or kill him. I don't know. So that seems to have taken a drastic turn. And again, I may have missed something. I have not been as 100% with my wrestling lately, which is quite sad. But I don't know, guys. But with all that being said, I have really enjoyed this story for the most part, right? Christian Cage is just so fantastic at being just that prick that you love to hate. And especially when he would go out there and wear those, just with that smug look on his face, and wear those turtlenecks. I just thought it was just such a dick look and just a dick move, which is great. You live to see it, right? And I think Jungle Boy, Jack Perry, I think this is going to be a big moment for him, or a big match. I think with it being no holds bar, I think that kind of gives you the freedom and the leeway, really, to get physical and get violent. But we have another match later on that is going to encompass and embody violence. So it's going to be interesting, I guess, to see how far they go with this one. But this story too, like, this has a real personal backstory to it, right? And a lot of personal digs have been thrown and personal comments have been thrown, especially by Christian Cage. So if any match deserves a no holds barred stipulation, or lack thereof stipulations, right, or anything like that, I think this one is obviously it for the lineup that we have here tonight. And I guess if I had to put money on it or make an official pick, which I do because that's the whole point of this, my heart wants to say Jack Perry wins, but my brain wants to say Christian Cage, just because I feel like they want to continue this. Or maybe, I don't know, I just feel like that we're going to get at least, I don't know, guys. And as I'm debating it and kind of talking to you guys, or to no one really right now, I don't think we could get, another 3 months out of this story. I think that we've really just prolonged it enough. So I'm going to say Jack Perry wins here, even though I'm not going to be surprised at all if Christian Cage wins, especially with a returning Luchasaurus or anything like that. So officially I'm going to go Jack Perry wins here. But again, I don't know. I don't feel confident in that, so I'm not going to be surprised, like I said, if I get that one wrong. But next up, we have Chris Jericho versus Ricky Starks. Again, a lot of people seem to really be a fan of, what was it, not this past week, but the week before, I believe it was, with Ricky Starks coming out there with an open contract, essentially saying that, he was moving on from Jericho and essentially doing the reverse psychology with Jericho, getting him to obviously accept and agree to the match itself. And and add the stipulation that the entire Jericho Appreciation Society are banned from ringside. Again, I think that is obviously very strategic here. I think that opens up a path for don't hate me, guys. I think that stipulation, and again, this is complete spitball, right? But I think that opens up a pathway for Chris Jericho to bring in Paul White, aka Big Show. Big Show, I think, had just recently has said that he's looking to not get back in the ring like on a regular basis, but to get more involved and to get back into things. He's in incredible shape. So yeah, I think he just filmed and finished filming some TV show or a movie or something, or some series, whether it's on TV, Netflix, whatever. So yeah, and of course, obviously, he's already with AEW. So it wouldn't surprise me, I think there's a reason the JAS are banned specifically. And it's not just everyone is banned from ringside, right? It's very specific to the JAS. So I think that has a lot to do with it. So yeah, and I feel like so yeah, my official pick is going to be Chris Jericho, right? And as much as I want Ricky Starks to win, but I think that is going to set up, because I'm trying to think what their next show is, right? Because you can't drag all of these out to Double or Nothing, which I believe is in May. So May or yeah, it has to be in May because I think Forbidden Door is in like June. So it has to be like towards the end of May, which is a little less than 3 months, right? But I don't know if you can drag this out for 3 more months. I'm not sure exactly what their next big show is throughout the midway point between pay-per-view to pay-per-view that we have coming up, but I don't think this one and again, I could be completely wrong on this one, and again, I want Ricky Starks to win because I'm a big fan of Ricky Starks, and I think dude has just dumb potential, right? Like he's one of those guys and talents that looks like a star. But with that being said, I think Jericho is going to outsmart Ricky, as much as I hate to say it. And I don't know why I feel so strong about this. And the pay-per-view can come and go, and I could be completely wrong again, and we never hear or see from Paul White, Big Show. But I just think Jericho's going to bring out Show. They had Jericho Show back in WWE. Of course, they're not going to, unless it's not trademarked, but they're not going to go by that. Or they can't anyway, because he's not going by Big Show. So yeah, I'm going to put my money on Jericho here via a, I guess, returning Big Show, Paul White, interfering and costing Ricky Starks the victory here. And that way it saves and protects Ricky too, right? It's not making him look dumb. He did what he needed to do. He got the JAS ban from ringside, but Jericho, just being the veteran that he is, just outsmarted Ricky and went just above and beyond and literally got the Giant to come and save him. So yeah, but as I say that, guys, it's not really honestly what I want to happen. I want Ricky to win, but I just have a funny feeling again with this one that Jericho's going to pull it out and there's going to be some type of bullshit. Moving on to the tag team division, the tag team championship match, and we're going to talk about this one for a second. It's a 4-way between the Guns, the Acclaim, Jay Lethal, and Jeff Jarrett facing off against Orange Cassidy and Danhausen for, of course, the AEW tag team titles. The Guns are your tag team champions, and we'll start with that. I get it, right? I get the idea behind it, and I will say, they have grown on me. They have really, I don't want to say improved a lot, but they've really just leave it at that. They've grown on me as an act. They really annoy me, and that's the whole point. But I just don't think they should have been champions right now. I think the Acclaim should have been running strong. I think the Acclaimed had a lot of momentum, and like I had said before, I just don't feel like Billy Gunn is needed, right? I get the whole scissor me daddy ass thing, and I'm not saying the scissor me part should be taken away because I'm a big fan of that, right? So I think just the Billy Gunn aspect needs to be removed, and or he needs to officially realign with his sons, his actual biological sons and not his adopted sons, and just make it a true heel act and just move on. And I think with that, you could probably push it out again to the next big show and then have the Acclaimed win the titles back. But I'm not here. I'm not. And again, like I said, I'm digging what the Guns have done recently as a tag team, but I just think it was too early. I just think it was too early for them and too early for the Acclaim to lose the titles. And I think, yeah, they still have their momentum, and I'm not saying that's changed or anything like that, but I don't know. I would have kept it on them and had them run strong and just go through, not run, rampage, no pun intended, on the division or anything like that, but just, I don't know, just something different, just not this. And the addition of Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett and the team of Cassidy and Danhausen, not a fan of. It's completely unnecessary. There's no reason it needs to be a 4-way tag team match. The way they added those other teams in was just completely unnecessary and just a joke. This is a company that really was established on tag team wrestling, and the whole emphasis, or one of the major emphasis and major points, was going to be on tag team wrestling. And there was always speculation like, oh, what is going to be the first tag team match to headline a pay-per-view, right? So, and I don't know, this just ain't it for me. And I think the trios division has really dampered and put a damper rather on the tag division itself. And again, they still have a stacked roster, obviously, probably too stacked. A stacked tag division, but there's, right, prime example, your Young Bucks, they're in the trios division. It's FTR, they aren't here right now. I guess they're still nursing injuries or maybe just riding out. I don't know what they're doing, but it's just what I think. Santana is still injured, and Ortiz is with Eddie Kingston right now, and Eddie Kingston apparently quit AEW and is debuting in Ring of Honor and doing something like that. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not a fan of this, guys. And again, this is probably going to be a fun match, and I have a funny feeling, like something inside of me is saying that Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett are going to pull out the victory here just to get more heat and just more hatred on Jarrett, because I think, and especially in AEW, that's just the prime place for him to be a bad guy, and he does it very well. Like I had said a few months back, like the work that he did with some of those videos for like the Ric Flair final match that I saw were really well done, and just he is a really good heel. And say what you want about Jarrett, he can play the part well. He just shouldn't be probably playing the part on TV as much as he is when you have such a stacked roster and so much talent out there. But look, I get it, right? I'm not saying he shouldn't be out there completely, or at all rather. Just not needed, him and Jay Lethal both. And again, Jay Lethal's very, very good in the ring, obviously, right? Goes without saying. He, dude has had a very, very good career. And a very interesting career if you really think back and look back on it. But yeah, I'm not feeling it, man. And part of me would just love to see Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett win the tag titles just to see all the fucking hatred from the fans and everything. And just watch Twitter melt for a little bit. But, I think the Guns are going to retain here. I think it's the perfect time for a new champion to be crowned, or a new team to be crowned champions. But I think that the Guns are going to pull it off here, and I think that's just going to give them more bullshit to spew and just more, like, just shit to throw in the Acclaim's faces. And I think then will lead to whatever the next big show is. That'll lead to a final one, or a team versus team standard tag team match versus the Acclaimed and the Guns, and then we'll finally get the Acclaimed retaining the titles, as they, like I said, should have never lost them, and moving on from there. I don't know, maybe at Revolution, maybe that's the night where Billy Gunn officially turns on the Acclaim, even though, because technically there's no DQs, I'm assuming, in this match, just like there's not in WWE when they have a multi-person or team match like that. So yeah, maybe this is going to be the pay-per-view where Billy Gunn turns on the Acclaim, but we'll see. As much as I hate to say it, I'm going with the Guns retaining here. But my sleeper pick is Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett winning, just because I'm a little sick in the brain, right? And I just love to see people lose their shit on Twitter. So yeah, I think that would be great. Next matchup we have is Samoa Joe facing off against Wardlow for the TNT Championship. This match is going to be good, I'm sure, right? Just quick pick here. Wardlow wins for me. I think it makes total sense. Wardlow takes the TNT Championship off of Samoa Joe. He handles that division and that area of the card, right? In AEW, while Samoa Joe moves over to the ROH portion and continues being the television champion over there and kind of handles it over there. I wish we would have gotten the story about Wardlow's ponytail prior to, or at least just like some type of like Easter eggs leading up to it. Because it's kind of like we witnessed him getting his hair cut, right, by Samoa Joe, cutting the ponytail off. And yeah, like that's embarrassing or supposed to be demoralizing, right? And it's a real personal attack on someone, right? But then what was it, the next week or the week after that we finally got that sit down with JR and Wardlow explained why his hair meant so much to him and everything because of his father and all that, which is a good story, but like it's like now I feel it's like I don't know, it's just a weird thing. And I don't know, and again, I'm not sitting here saying that, oh, like, we should have had a sit-down and Wardlow should have told us specifically why he has a ponytail, right? Because that would be kind of weird. Or just foreshadowing what would happen. So I'm not saying that was necessarily maybe even wrong. Or, I don't know, it's just, this whole thing just kind of feels like forced to me and just kind of odd. And I think with Samoa Joe, it's just simple, right? The dude's a killer. Just, that's the whole, Joe's gonna kill you, right? Like, the fans chant it during his matches. So, to me, like, it was a simple story, right? Like, just two badasses wanting to beat the shit out of each other. And yeah, you could throw some, like, little salt and pepper in there with some extra added story. But to me, it was just, maybe, I feel like a chunk was missing, or like 2 chapters were missing in the story. And we just skipped ahead a little bit. And it was... I loved, well, I'm not going to say I love, that's not correct. I really enjoyed Wardlow's sit down and his explanation. I think he was just, you know, it felt like a big deal, right? But I just wish you probably would have gotten it at some point prior to, or at least, like I said, just Easter eggs, like have him mention it when, for instance, like back in the day, right? When him and MJF were feuding and he had that promo where he was in the ring for, what was it, like a 5-minute segment, 10-minute segment, just talking and like really establishing who he was. It would have been nice to have just said just something there, like and he could have been like, yo, and for instance, like, cause when he was talking about being raised by his mother, and I think he like a family full of women or some shit like that. He could have mentioned, you know, like, and my dad, you know, when whatever their relationship was at that point. Not saying you have to get in depth, but he could have just like. Just reference his ponytail, right, and touch his ponytail, like, and I grew my hair out for my dad type shit, you know, because of X, Y, and Z. So, and then recall, especially with us AEW fans, right, we remember everything, which is could be a detriment. But then we would have been like, oh shit, that's right. And when Joe did it, like, a lot of it, or, you know, your diehards would have been like, yo, like, that Joe just cut his hair. Remember when Wardlow said X, Y, Z? Like, and then the following week, or the 2 weeks after, whenever Wardlow did that sit down with JR, then he could have officially reminded everyone and then actually in depth gone through with the story. So, yeah, I don't know. And again, it shouldn't be that big of a deal, right? And it's not that big of a deal, but that's just my kind of 2 cents behind that, and just maybe what I would have done a little bit differently, but hindsight is 20/20, right? But again, Wardlow wins for me, and Samoa Joe moves on into Ring of Honor. Then I think we already know who's up next for Wardlow, which is Powerhouse Hobbs, which I wish they wouldn't have thrown that match so soon, but we'll get into that at a later time. Next up, we have the Elite, which is, of course, your AEW Trios champions, facing off against House of Black. And I wish I could really get in depth with this one, but we don't have much of a story, and that's really fucking sad. We've had Malachi Black say some stuff, and do their normal promos, I guess. And then I think this past week we had the Elite attempting to do their entrance, and then all of a sudden House of Black, you know, the lights go out, they come back on, the House of Black are behind them, they attack them, and then that's it. Like, I don't know, like, I just feel like there was so much more we could have gotten out of both of these teams and both of these trios, right? And I don't know, it's just sad to me. It's a bummer, you know. Like I just wish we really would have gotten more story out of this for me. But again, I say that in like with everything in AEW or most things with AEW, you can say like, oh, I wish I would have got more story, but the match is going to be sick, right? And of course it's going to be. You have the Elite versus House of Black, for God's sakes. Like, how can it not be, right? But with all that being said, the Elite retain for me, and they move on to, I don't even know who's going to be next, to be honest with you guys, unless they continue this story and actually give us a story, which would be cool. But I don't feel like that's happening. So yeah, the Elite retain. Moving on, we have the Texas Death Match, Jon Moxley versus Hangman Adam Page. And this is one of them that we have actually gotten a decent story out of. Of course, this all started back in October when Adam Page got his legitimate concussion from Jon Moxley. And ever since then, Hangman came back and was pissed off at Jon Moxley for, of course, what he said, intentionally trying to hurt him. Which should be is the point in wrestling, right? Kayfabe, right? So I don't know, but it's actually been a pretty decent story and a pretty decent build, I will say. I think Jon Moxley, it's not a matter of if he bleeds tomorrow, but how much and how soon. My money, and that's one of the real questions here. My money is Jon Moxley is bleeding within the first 3 minutes of the match. Maybe that's not too much of a shocker, but that's what I would put my money on. As far as the actual victor to this little mini feud, I would say I'm going to take Adam Page with this one. I think Jon Moxley is finally going to get that vacation that he has been wanting. And again, by vacation, I think like maybe 3 weeks, probably maybe 4 weeks, or maybe 6 weeks for Mox, you know. I think he's going to get that time off. And again, like I said, right, like he rightfully deserves. And I think this is going to be a big deal for Adam Page. I think this Texas Death Match needs to be brutal. I think it needs to be violent. I think it needs to be physical. That's why I was saying the no holds barred match earlier. I wish they would have had like a different route for that, even though I totally get why with the story behind Cage and Jack Perry. But yeah, like I think with this one, I was about to say maybe because I don't want it to be overkill, right? With two similar matches with such a loaded card already. But I think if you space it out right, it's not really, it may rather not impact each other too much. But I think this is going to be a really big, I don't want to say test for Hangman, but a really big moment for Hangman in a different way, right? Obviously, he accomplished the big one, and he was the champion. He succeeded in that route, right? But I believe, to me, like, I think for AEW fans, like, this is going to be a confirmation and just a turning point for Hangman. Not even saying like he's going to be like a bad guy or anything after that, but just showing a new layer and just a new toughness to his character. So I'm going Hangman with this one. I would actually be surprised if Jon Moxley won. So I'm going Hangman. Next up we have Jamie Hayter versus Saraya versus Ruby Soho versus for the AEW Women's World Championship. Again, guys, I like I said at the top of the show, I don't want to be Debbie Downer over here, but I'm not feeling this story either. And it sucks because I love like invasion angles, right? Like I am one of those like 2%ers out there that actually enjoyed the invasion angle back in the day. Yeah, it had its flaws, and yes, I was young and I didn't think about a lot of logistical things and just things common sense, right? But I enjoyed it. To me, like it was just really intriguing, and this had the potential, right, for me, and it just is not there yet. And maybe it'll continue, or after this match, it'll continue on, and this is just the beginning. But I don't know what it is, guys. I'm not feeling it. I don't. And with Ruby Soho kind of being stuck in the middle, like that part's interesting. Like that part is cool. Like that's different. But I don't know. I feel like Ruby is probably going to side with Saraya and Tony after this, after the match. And I think that's why we're going to get a continuation. But I think Jamie Hayter is going to pick up the victory here and retain the title, as she should. I don't think there's any reason to take the title off of her right now. She's still getting great reactions when she comes out. And she has a great look. So I think that it would be foolish to take the title off of her right now. So my pick would be officially Jamie Hayter. But I don't know. Like And I will say, I don't think Saraya should be in like a championship match already. Like and again, nothing against her, right? But just for anyone, it doesn't matter if it was her, Bryan Danielson, anyone. Like, I don't, and Edge is a great example. I don't think Edge should have came back and had one match and then immediately gone to a championship match, right? I just, that, the story there and just the story is the return and the build up to the big moment. So I just feel like we completely just again skipped some chapters and just overlooked a lot and just really left a lot of the food that's on the table untouched, and it's really sad. And it's a shame, rather. I think that you really could have built up, and of course you still have that one-on-one championship match that you can build up to, but this is her first championship match in how long, right? Her first AEW championship match, her only, maybe third match, I think, back, from injury. So I don't know, man. I just feel like you really, as a company, left a lot, and you just didn't dig into it deep enough, like with the whole Saraya return aspect, at least. And again, I'm going to give the story, I'm not going to say the benefit of the doubt, but I'm going to say I'm going to give it more time. But again, my official pick is Jamie Hayter retains, and I think Ruby Soho officially turns on the good guys and teams with Saraya and Storm. And again, to me, I think the thing that's kind of bothering me too, I don't see Toni Storm as a bad guy. I feel like that was premature too. So I don't know. Maybe I'm off. Let me know what you guys think on Twitter at ASHMANNS or on the show's Twitter page at kickashpodcast_. But I'm not really feeling the build with this one. But at least there was story, right? And at least I will give them credit for that. I will acknowledge that. At least it was something substantial. And again, I'm not saying it's terrible. I need a little bit more time with this one. But that brings us to the main event, which is the Iron Man match. Your world champion, of course, is Maxwell Jacob Friedman, MJF, facing off against Bryan Danielson for Triple B, right? AEW World Championship. Max has just completely reinvented himself, like, appearance-wise. Like, I love the haircut, I love the tan. He's just jacked. Like, dude is ripped. Like, he's really put in the time and the effort to be a star and to be a champion and to look the part. And I think that that's huge, and it's just something that's just grossly overlooked and just not appreciated as much nowadays. And it's simple. And yes, he's in suits every week, but it's not, he works the suits, man. Like, it's just it's not like it doesn't feel forced, and it doesn't feel like something that, like he's just wearing a suit because that's what he's supposed to do. It's kind of like Cody, right? Which is ironic because of their relationship. But it's like Cody. Like, I would truly and fully expect if I were to go to a Cracker Barrel at whatever day, at whatever time, and which MJF I'm sure would never be at a Cracker Barrel, but if Cody, like back in the day, right, with the Elite, if he was at a Cracker Barrel, and he was, there's pictures, he would be in a suit. And I fully believe MJF would be. And that's what you want I'm not saying your champion always has to be in suits, right? But that's just the vibe and the prestige and just the importance and just the presentation of being a champion. To me, like, that's just really been kind of lost. And whether you're the world champion or whatever, like, or not whatever, but if you're the world champion or the Intercontinental champion or the All-Atlantic champion, it's just, I don't know. To me, like, that's just something that one of the things that really hooked me as a kid growing up, like, for Stone Cold, perfect example. Stone Cold never came out in a suit except for that one time, and he had his baseball cap on, and it was just, it's just, I can picture it now, it was just completely just hilarious. He didn't come out with a suit, he came out with his jeans and his trunks, and, he was your average dude. But he felt like a champion. He felt like the real fucking deal, like a big deal, like a star, like the main event. And to me, MJF is just that. And this wasn't intended to be like an MJF love session, but I say all that because it's gonna lead to my obvious pick. But I think it's way too soon to even think about taking the title off of him, and that, to me, that's not even the point with this with this match, the Iron Man match, to me, of course, right? Like, it's, quote, for Bryan Danielson wants to go in there and win the championship, right? Win the big one, win the title, all that good stuff. But to me, the real story is MJF hanging, and not even necessarily hanging with Danielson, but proving again to everyone how fantastic he is in the ring, and how him on the mic kind of takes away and kind of makes us forget how good he is in the ring. And I'm not saying he's Bryan level, right, technically, or anything like that, but over time he could very well, I'm not going to say he's going to get to Bryan level technically wise, but dude is very good, right? And again, I think back to the match he had with Darby Allin and the match he had with Jack Perry. I don't know, to me, and that's why selfishly, like, I wish we could see him wrestle a little bit more, even if it's just you add in 5 to 6 more matches throughout the year and just kind of spread them out. Like, to me, I wish we would see him more, and I know that's the point, right? To leave you wanting more. But yeah, I wish we would see a little bit more of good old MJF in the ring. But I think, with all that being said, the Iron Man match, I think it's going to be fantastic, and I hope it is. I think MJF is going to start off doing his little chicken shit, tactics and everything like that, and just really fucking with Bryan and trying to get in his head. But then I think after 5, 6, 10 minutes of that, Bryan is going to catch him and then start actually chain wrestling and just breaking him down, and just kind of picking apart different limbs and just targeting different limbs like Bryan loves to do. It makes me think back to not when he first started, but when he was going on one of those runs where every match he was winning by a different submission hold. So I hope we get something like that out of this Iron Man match, and I think we will, because I think that's the whole point, again, is for Bryan, besides winning the championship, is to just really expose Max, right? Like what he said. But I think it's going to be really good. I think we're actually going to see some good chain wrestling. I think it's going to be like a really well wrestled match for a good chunk of time. And I think after that 10-minute mark, we're probably going to go about maybe 15 minutes of just good solid wrestling, and then I think MJF is going to do some fuck shit, and then that's when, and throughout this, I think we're going to get, or it wouldn't surprise me at all to see him get disqualified and to cost himself one of the falls just to brutalize Bryan, right? Whether it's hitting him with the chair or just doing something deliberate, knowing he's going to cost himself a fall, but doing enough damage to pick it up right after that. So I think that's kind of going to be kind of like the vibe of the whole match itself, because again, it's 60 minutes, so you're going to have to do some shit in between. You can't just go full blown the whole match, which, hey, maybe you can, but I don't see that. And regarding, like, if I had to make like a prediction for how many falls we end up getting on each side, I'm going to go 2 and 1. We end up getting 2 and 1. Yeah, I'm going to go MJF ends up, I don't know. 2 and 1, yeah. I'm gonna go 2 and 1 with MJF, of course, officially winning. But I think or maybe 3 and 2. Yeah, we'll go 3 and 2. That's better. Yeah, 2 and 1's too limited. Because I was just thinking, like, how do you really want to, like, visually pin and actually get a 3 count on MJF yet? But I think it would be okay if you did, and especially depending on how they did it. So I'm going to go 3 and 2, and I think one of those is going to be MJF intentionally getting himself disqualified, like I said, to fuck with Bryan some more and inflict more damage, right? But yeah, of course, my official pick for the match is, like I said, MJF retaining the title. It would be dumb as fuck if you took the championship off of MJF. I don't see it. And I was thinking about it earlier. My crazy ass pick for long term, going into, like, I would say maybe 3 months into 4 months into 2024. I'm gonna, and again, this is way too soon, but I was just thinking about it earlier. I'm gonna go with MJF being the one to end Cody Rhodes' reign as WWE Undisputed Heavyweight Champion, whatever they're gonna phrase it as at that point. and in WWE, obviously. I think, and I can't wait. I really see, and maybe, and this is, maybe he already did re-sign with AEW. I wouldn't be surprised if he did it, or if he did, rather. But man, if he didn't, it just writes itself. MJF, the bidding war of 2024, right, which he had always been saying well before Cody ever left. Now he has this phenomenal year as champion, world heavyweight champion in AEW. He's running the company. He's the face of the company. However, he loses the championship at the end of the year, right? Whether it's a CM Punk-esque type thing with Chicago threatening to walk out, all that shit, which I think would be really fun, especially if we could figure out a way to get Punk back in AEW at that point. I just think that would just be just so poetic to have that, or have Punk play a part with MJF leaving AEW officially and then going back to WWE, and then who's winning over in WWE as the champion for MJF? Oh, good old boy Cody Rhodes, and we all know how close they were in AEW, what MJF did to Cody Rhodes, right? The whole reason Cody Rhodes couldn't win the big one in AEW is because Maxwell fucked him over. And Cody Rhodes had, and I still don't, well, I guess, it makes kind of, you can make reasons for it, right? But I thought it was so stupid at the time that Cody just out of nowhere just threw that stipulation up there, and I think it was against Chris Jericho. Yeah, Jericho was the champion. Cody Rhodes said if he didn't beat Chris Jericho for the championship, he would never challenge for the AEW championship again, and he never did. And Cody's the man of his word, but that was because MJF threw in the towel. Well, we all know the story for Cody, right? He wanted to win the big one for Dusty. He couldn't win the big one in AEW because MJF fucked him over, and Cody's a man of his word. So he left AEW. He left his baby. He left his creation because of MJF. And of course, this isn't true, right? But this is just what Cody can say. He went back to WWE, and of course, he always wanted to come home because, of course, being in WWE, you don't want to shit on WWE, right? He could say he had to come home, like you can frame it, right? Like you moved on to what you thought were greener pastures and built a new house, but it's nothing like home, right? Home is where your heart is, and his heart was where Dusty was, and that's WWE was where Dusty was. So that's why he went back to WWE, and now MJF is coming over there to fuck with Cody over there and to cost him his dream of and at that point, he'll be on what, a year, coming up to a year. Yeah, it would be close to a year. It wouldn't be a full year quite yet. If MJF is correct, and starting January of 24, right? Like he'd be a free agent. You would have him come in around that time, and whether you want to debut him in the Royal Rumble or anything like that, we'll get into that much later on. Because I'm just fantasy booking right now, but I think, and man, this is bold. But I don't know if you could, like, I don't know if you want to throw MJF in the main event at Mania right when he comes in, right? Like, I'm not saying, and who knows, maybe this year really pushes him to that level. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm not even saying, like, the title defense should be at Mania, but, because that's a little strong. I could see, like, a SummerSlam, for instance, right? Like, I could see, or a Royal Rumble, but I think that would be way too soon, because like I said, with that type of story, you'd want to get some time out of it. So I could see like a SummerSlam, and it would be really reminiscent to Randy Orton, when Randy Orton won the World Heavyweight Championship at age 24 in WWE, and from Chris Benoit at SummerSlam, and that really started his singles career, and just really, he didn't have the best run as champion at that point. I think it was only for like a month, but that really just showed that he can be champion, and right, like Randy has said that wasn't, he just done some shit that he regrets in like his personal life. We all have, but I can see that being like an MJF parallel, and that would of course set up a beautiful story between MJF and Randy Orton, of course, at some point. But I could really see, and again, guys, this is an AEW prediction show for Revolution. I'm sitting here fantasy booking MJF and WWE. But I say that because I think that you You really, and it sucks for AEW and it sucks for Tony, and that's why, for Tony's sake and AEW's sake, I really hope that they locked MJF down and they gave him essentially whatever he wanted and whatever they needed to at least hold on to him throughout 2024. But man, I could really see MJF just having a fantastic 2023, carrying over into WWE and being the guy that comes in there and fucks with Cody Rhodes and just takes Cody Rhodes' dream away from him of potentially defeating, or not defeating, but possibly going on to break Roman Reigns' reign as the longest reigning champion of the modern era, in the modern age, right? Like, it just kind of writes itself. But again, guys, I just went off on a huge side rant and side track there, but it was just some thoughts that I had earlier today. I was just kind of looking at the card and just thinking of everything, and then I saw, of course, well, I actually haven't seen SmackDown yet, but I of course know, Cody and Reigns officially met face to face, so I'm definitely going to check that out once we wrap this up. But I don't know, guys. That's just me kind of, again, fantasy booking. But again, wrapping it and tying it back into AEW in the main event, I think to me, it's a no-brainer that MJF retains. But I think the real story with that match is just the wrestling aspect. And I think it's a given, or it should be a given, that Danielson is just going to get the best wrestling that we've ever seen at MJF. And I think it's going to be really fun. And that's why I hope that they, like I was bitching about earlier, that's why I hope they don't run this card too terribly late, just so the fans can have the energy. Because you already know you're going to get an hour match. And if you start this at 11:30, 11:45, like, that's just pushing it, man. It's just pushing it. And it's not fair. And it's not fair to the main event, guys. It's not fair to the fans. Like, I get you want to give us our money's worth, but quality over quantity, man, in a lot of aspects. So, with all that being said, thank you so much for listening to the show, downloading the show. I really appreciate you guys. I can't wait to watch the show. Like I said, it hasn't been the most exciting story and build to a pay-per-view, right? But AEW always delivers on the pay-per-view, so I'm not too terribly concerned really at all. And I'm really excited to watch the pay-per-view. It's, like I said, just knowing you're going to be able to sit down and watch live wrestling and it's a big night, it's fun. So, with all that being said, again, guys, thank you so much for checking out the show. We will talk hopefully soon, and I hope you guys have a great night.